Welcome to Tactical Talk. This is Zain. Today the topic of our show is the African refugee crisis in Europe. Today the guest of our show is Max Fanni Canelles, the director and also the editor-in-chief of Social News, an Italian news magazine, and also the Italian bureau chief for Tactical Talk Network. Welcome to our show, Max. This is Zain Khan. It's a pleasure to have you on Tactical Talk.
Thank you, Zain. Thank you.
Max, let's get to the first question. From which countries and regions of Africa are the refugees coming from into Europe?
Yes, about 1/3 of all refugees around the world originate from Africa. And Africa has experienced and suffered several wars. In Africa, 8 countries have experienced conflicts in the past 5 years. These countries are Ivory Coast, the Central African Republic, Libya, Mali, Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and Burundi. An estimated 53% of all African refugees are children, and that is nearly 3 million young people. 5 of the largest refugee populations in the world are in Africa: Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda. 7 out of the top 10 countries with the most national resources also have the highest number of refugees are African. These are led by Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and Uganda.
Okay, Max, let's get to the second question. What are the reasons behind their migration and what methods do they use to migrate?
Yes, migrations have always been part of the history of humanity. This phenomenon today is amplified and made inevitable by ongoing humanitarian crises. The people are trying to escape persecution based on race, religion, nationality, innovative membership, or political opinion. But we need to understand better each other. To escape poverty is the main goal, but also to escape conflict or violence. Many are also displaced by the jihadist group operating as Al-Qaeda in Maghreb and Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. To find a refugee after environment factor caused by climate change, for example, natural disaster, erosion, floods, hurricanes, tsunami. An estimated 1 billion people could be displaced in the next 50 years because of the effects of climate change. Another, to seek superior health care. For example, imagine living in a country with limited access to health care when you're suffering from serious health problems. Or other, to offer more opportunities to children. Parents sometimes make the difficult decision to migrate so their children can benefit from things like superior education and plentiful job opportunities. Niger is the main hub on the road to North Africa. The majority of incidents occurred along roads from Western Africa and the Horn of Africa towards Libya and Egypt. Sickness or violence are the main causes of death in those cases. However, from Niger northward, migrants are illegal and are so forced to rely on the smugglers and traffickers to reach Libya and Algeria. The majority of migrants in Libya live clandestinely under the cover of smuggler or kidnapping organizations. The people are exposed to kidnap for ransom, forced labor, sexual violence, and enforced prostitution. After drugs, weapons and prostitution, immigrants are the fourth most profitable business in the area. This is very important to understand. After restrictions on the European Eastern route, about 82% of all migrants are traveling to Italy from Libya by the central Mediterranean route. The other people move from Turkey bound from Greece or more recently from Morocco bound from Spain. More than 22,500 migrants have reportedly died or disappeared globally since 2014, but more than half perished while attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea. And this is in accordance to a study by the International Organization for Migration.
This is a very important question. How do the European countries perceive these migrations and refugees, and how do they plan to handle this situation?
Yes. The massive inflow of refugees that the European Union had in 2015-2016 took many countries by surprise. As a consequence of their geographical position and the Dublin regulation, Italy, Greece, and to a lesser extent Spain have been most affected, and however, countries such as Austria, Sweden, and Germany took in the highest number of migrants compared to their population. The growth in the number of arrivals has created the perception of a crisis, so the issue of migration has had great influence on elections in Austria, France, Germany, Italy, and the European countries, boosting support for populist and Eurosceptic parties. In these days, Italy is hostage to this situation and fails to have a government. The European Union migratory policy to handle, this is the second part of the question, to handle the situation comprise the following strengths. First of all, collaborating and working with countries of origin and transit. The second, strengthening the external border of the European Union. And after, one of the key priorities of the migration policy is the prevention of illegal migration. The irregular migrants have to return to their country of origin, but the most important thing is we need fostering the integration of third country nationals.
What percentage of refugees get asylum out of all the refugees who are seeking asylum?
Yes, today refugee is used to refer to all people entitled to protection. Resident permits of asylum are rarely given to refugees, but we have in Italy and Europe temporary residence permits on grounds of subsidiary protection or humanitarian protection. And this type of permit only lasts 3 years and gives less rights. In Italy, for example, in the past few years, only one request of asylum out of 10 ended up with the status of refugee. At the same time, the number of requests of subsidiary or humanitarian protection that get approved is significantly bigger. It can be estimated that about 59% of the people arriving in Italy across the Mediterranean Sea ask the status of refugee or international or humanitarian protection in Italy. However, the majority of them preferred to request protection in other European countries.
Max, let's get to the last question. What happens to the refugees who don't get legal asylum?
Yes, Following the asylum application, the immigrant is welcomed in the center called first reception, awaiting a response. The illegal immigrant who has not applied or has been refused is taken to special center called identification and expulsion to be sent home as soon as possible. Illegal asylum seekers caught in the third country of the European Union have to be sent back to the first European country where they arrived, in order to make their asylum claim in accordance to Dublin regulation. The European Union has a specific rule to try to work out which country is responsible for handling an asylum request. The Eurodac system helps identify which country was the entry point by a database of fingerprints. However, the Dublin system creates a fundamental inequality by placing too much responsibility on frontline states like Greece and Italy. Italy and Greece are struggling with the pressures of the financial and political crisis and the large increase in the North African migrants.
Thank you so much, Max Fanni Canelles, for being on Tactical Talk. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Zain. Thank you.
This was Max Fanni Canelles, the director and also the editor-in-chief of Social News, an Italian news magazine, and also the Italian bureau chief for Tactical Talk Network. We were discussing the African refugee crisis in Europe. Until the next episode of Tactical Talk, this is Zain. Take care and goodbye.